parents, welcome to week 22 of your GKIS app. So this week is probably, I think, one of my favorite weeks because I go over two things that are critically important. With the parents, I'm going over addiction, and with the kids, I'm going over the brain traps of video gaming. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to try to go kind of quickly this week because I have a lot of technical information. I decided to go ahead and give you guys like university level data, which means it gets a little heavy on the brain science, but this way you'll have what you need to make good decisions for your family. All right, here we go.
Why our kids struggle not to overuse screen media. Did you know that the prefrontal region of the brain, the part that involves impulsivity, complex reasoning, and problem solving, doesn't fully mature until we are 23 years old? This is why kids don't recognize future consequence and make unwise decisions. Did you also know that screen media may lead to excessive dopamine in the pleasure center of the brain in a similar way that all drugs of addiction do? That means some kids drift into pre-addiction behavior patterns, like flow, when video gaming or using social media. Although every child's different, boys tend to prefer gaming and girls tend to prefer social media. Surging dopamine in the pleasure center quickly overpowers an immature frontal lobe. That means our kids need us to guide them well into what we consider adulthood. When it's your kids on the line, go to getkidsinternet.safe.com.
Okay, so addiction was one of the things I was most concerned about when I founded GKIS, and here's why. Check out this video. Now, it turns out that there's manipulative design baked into our devices that capture our attention. And sometimes the dopamine release of the pleasure of watching a screen overrides our judgment. Check out this baby with this screen. Now, I picked this up from YouTube years ago when I first founded GKIS. Now, you may think this is a spoiled baby or an angry baby, but what I believe is happening here is that this baby's autonomic nervous system is connected to this device. And even though he or she, I can't tell, is too young to recognize, they don't have language yet, so they're not doing any reading or complex reasoning, still in this one-to-one immersion and is digitally fluent. Disturbing stuff. Now, most of us have seen that behavior in restaurants, etc. Let me see if I can.
Facebook, here's my daughter having a temper tantrum because I won't give her her phone.
It's not just babies.
So she's having a temper tantrum. So she's 13 years old.
It's also our
Hey, Kiara, say hi. Here, you want your phone? Here's your phone. Here's your phone. Kiara.
All right, so I'm not a fan of that video, and that, I'm not for parents cyberbullying their kids on the internet or on social media, but I get the dad's tendency to go like, why are you so attached to your screen and why are you throwing fit like a 3-year-old? Well, the reason is because of that manipulative design. Most of us do show behavioral signs of potential addiction. Do you know that we check our iPhones an average of 80 times a day, 30,000 times a year? And 60% of parents think their teens are addicted to their mobile devices. Some of us even feel phantom notifications, like we can hear the vibration because of anxiety. We're wondering if we missed out on a notification or a call. We also witness behavioral changes in the psychological laboratory. We see that people on screen start to have poor risk evaluation. They get less adept at good decision making, and they also have trouble regulating their emotion when they've been on screen a long time. And we see people have a craving for their phone when they get bored. How many times have you waited in line in this within the last year, for example, where you don't pick up your phone and start browsing through your social media? We see people who are on screen often have this increased craving, more impulsivity, cognitive inflexibility, where they have a hard time getting off screen and, soothing themselves, and can show patterns of compulsive use. We also find that people on screen a lot have an increased sensitivity to the reward those screens provide and a decreased sensitivity to loss. Now, structurally, we also see changes in the brain. Neuroimaging studies are finding evidence of distinct neurobiological changes similar to those seen in subjects with drug addiction. It turns out that the more we watch, the more brain tissue changes due to adaptive neuroplasticity. In other words, our brains are on a use it or lose it phenomenon. If we're on screen a lot, it's going to change the way our brain cells work. And as a result, we found that gamers who are on screen for hours a day do show volume change of the gray and white matter in their brain. We see atrophy, meaning that the gray and white matter decreases. We see reduced cortical thickness in the prefrontal, inferior frontal, corpus callosum, and supplemental motor areas. So what does that mean? We don't actually know. But we do know that we're seeing distinct brain changes in heavy screen users. We also see evidence of dopamine release and less dopamine receptor availability for heavy users. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter, the chemical in the brain that's released with pleasure. And it's also the neurotransmitter we see with addiction. So when people are on screen, they release more dopamine in the pleasure center of their brain, and they have less receptor availability. We also see higher activity in the brain's pleasure center. And heavy players process rewards and losses differently than non-players. So, since I've been in clinical practice, our diagnostic statistics manual, which is what psychologists and psychiatrists use for mental illness diagnosis, only gambling disorder is listed as a behavioral addiction. But internet gaming disorder was listed as a mental health disorder by the World Health Organization in 2019. So this is a relatively new phenomenon. Now, it doesn't mean everybody who uses screens qualify for screen addiction, but about 1 to 5% is estimated from research thus far, most commonly among single white males who prefer video gaming, cyber pornography, and online gambling. Women are more likely to show addictive use patterns with social media, texting, and online shopping. Of course, our gender identity has been diffusing now, and so we see less of a distinction between biological genders. Internet gaming disorder is commonly seen with other psychiatric disorders, including depression, anxiety, ADHD, self-harm, OCD, oppositionality, suicidality, and personality disorders. So screen addiction is often seen alongside other mental health problems. Now, how can you know that you might be addicted? Well, I'm not going to go over all these now because I promised you very short videos, but the screen addiction criteria are in your downloads this week. So read through them and see if anybody in your family meets some of these criteria. The more they meet, the more severe the addiction. If you have one or two, don't sweat it. Probably not a big concern. Now, just keep in mind that we have this vicious cycle of screen addiction where we love to escape our real life problems by being on these manipulative devices. And then because we don't spend our time solving those problems, the problems get bigger, and we want to escape even more. So keep in mind that, like with drugs of addiction, oftentimes we get on screen to escape the unpleasant aspects of our lives. And as a result, sometimes our relationship problems get worse, our financial problems get more severe, and we get less adept and less good at problem solving. So what's the secret sauce of prevention? The research is showing that mindfulness techniques are one of our best prevention measures for screen addiction. Luckily, I have given you some of these psychological wellness mindful techniques in previous weeks, and I'll continue to do that for you. Mindfulness simply means being in the present, paying attention to your surroundings and your breath, and releasing the worries that you have about things you've done or things that you're going to do. Mindfulness practice. All right, next week we're going to talk about product marketing and how to spot it. So I just want to thank you for listening today. And for the family video, this one's super powerful because it talks about the brain hacks that are baked into video games. And I have found that when I share this with my clients, they are less vulnerable to it. And sometimes they reject video games altogether if they think it's super high in manipulative content. So stay tuned. Can't wait to hear what you think. Dr. Tracy Bennett from Get Kids Internet Safe. Take care.